Welcome in, everyone. I am just going to get right to it because we are fortunate enough to get some bonus time with Trevor Zammit from NECA Toys. So I am very, very glad to welcome him back so quickly because we talked a lot of turtles very recently, like yesterday. But this year has revealed that you are overseeing a new line at NECA, and one that I'm going to just go ahead and say has been my favorite thing that has been newly announced for 2024, and that is Sesame Street.
Yeah, lucky enough to be working on some Sesame Street stuff with the rest of the guys. It's a big group project because like Stefan and Blaine and Aaron and Paul, Brody, like everyone's working on it together, and it's been a lot of fun so far. It's like a good departure. Like every now and then you just like, because I've been buried in Ninja Turtles forever, so you can sort of switch gears and like jump over to like working on some Sesame Street stuff, which is fun. And yeah, everything that we've done so far is like, seems like it's been pretty well received. People were excited about it when we showed the stuff off in San Diego, and that's always cool and exciting to get that kind of feedback. So yeah, it's been fun.
Well, this is okay. So this is a big like announcement for me, but I have to say that thinking back like over the years, like the property that I've probably talked to you the most about, just like from a fan perspective, like outside of Ninja Turtles, has always been the Muppets and Sesame Street, because I mean this is like you've got you're a lifetime Sesame Street fan and have been very into that for a long time, like I am too. So this just feels like I mean, does it feel like it's like almost like it's a long time coming for you to be able to work on something like this, and I just think it's really, really exciting.
It's definitely cool. Yeah, I grew up with the Muppets, like pretty much everyone in the 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was always a fan of the Muppet Show, and I loved Sesame Street as a kid. But my first actual toy job in the industry 20 years ago was working at Palisades Toys, like on just the very tail end of their Muppet line, and they were just getting started on Sesame Street, and the company went out of business. So I was there when we were working on like Ernie and Guy Smiley and the Two-Headed Monster. I was there for all of that stuff, and Super Grover is the only one that ever came out. So it is crazy, like 20 years later, that comes back around and we're finally like making these figures that we had tried when NECA got the license. We had a meeting. It was like Randy and Stefan and me and Jeff, and it was kind of like no question, like we should try to make these like in the same scale as Palisades. It was just like what and it was just everyone kind of like just unanimously agreed, like let's kind of do Palisade style, but with like updated sculpts and articulation and all of that stuff. So I don't know. Yeah, we've been working on these for the last like year or two, I guess.
Wow.
And we've got big plans. Hopefully everyone likes this stuff. The first 3 have shipped. Ernie and Bert are going to be out soon. Count will be shortly after that, and then we'll have new stuff to show at Toy Fair, hopefully. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun to work on, but crazy because I started like at Palisades like 20 years ago with like Ken and Kim working on this stuff, and they never came out.
Yeah, and I can honestly say, and I'm just going to show this for a second because I know you have some stuff to share with us as well. That it's like when Palisades went out of business, I was extremely sad, and it was like this was like the longest standing like canceled action figure line like wound that I have had for, as you said, like 20 years. And so it really was like when we were at Comic-Con and seeing, Bert and Ernie and Count in your booth, it was like, these are brand new, but it was almost like this is like time, like coming, as you mentioned, back together, to almost kind of continue a legacy that started so long ago. So I mean, I was thrilled to see that stylistically, with things like the required Muppet felt texture on them, and the scale and whatnot was going to be working with what we had. But it seems like a logical first release to have Bert and Ernie together. And admittedly, I'll say that if I had to pick like my all-time favorite Sesame Street characters, it's the two of them. I lean more towards like a lot of the more obscure guys once you start going down the list. But Bert and Ernie just feel right to get the line kicked off.
Yeah. I agree. They were, the old Bert and Ernie skits on the show were some of the best. Like, and yeah, they're kind of perfect to kick off the line. The original Palisades one, they had split up, like Ernie was in wave one and Bert was in and but yeah, we wanted to make sure that these guys kind of get out first. Bert has interchangeable like unibrows, so you can sort of swap the heads out. So you kind of get a few different expressions. It's kind of like what we do with Ninja Turtles, like the cartoon figures. The tops and bottoms of the heads are interchangeable. So yeah, so those two unibrows, you can switch them, and then he can get more frustrated looks or like.
I was gonna say that's awesome. Because the flummoxed look with the closed mouth, then you swap that brow, and then you've got the Bert like, getting ready to get angry from Ernie antics there. Oh, that's awesome! I did not know that was a feature. That's great.
It's it is, and I think we might have shown them like a couple different times. Like the ones that were in San Diego were like resin paint masters. I think we had plastic deco samples in New York.
Okay. And
it's very possible that we swapped out the heads but not said anything. So if you look at like San Diego and New York photos, like they might be like the eyebrows might be different on them, maybe.
Yeah.
I can't remember. But
wow.
But when you get your figures, it's the factory didn't forget to add glue. They're intentionally like interchangeable. I think where is it? The bottom of the box, it sort of shows like you can swap them out. So
yeah, that's awesome. And bright yellow, very Sesame Street-esque boxes, but it's these are ultimate versions of the characters, and so right away we're seeing some of the things that are true with that, because they have like character specific accessories and swappable parts and whatnot. But I'm picking up one of the first things that I think a lot of people noticed is that there's already a theme going on with each figure too, and that's we're getting the Muppet alphabet and maybe the numbers as well, because those were such a memorable part of the show, and it's really a cool idea to have one included with each figure.
Yeah, that was originally the plan. Also with Palisades, we were going to do the Muppet alphabet, and Sesame Street. I remember way back then, they sent us like this. We had a whole like this giant photo collage of all the Muppet letters, and I was like, oh, because they're just so funny looking. They're just, everything was like a Muppet on the show. So like, So my friend Laura that like actually works on Sesame Street, she built that letter A puppet.
Really?
And she posted a photo on Instagram last year sometime, and when I saw her Instagram post, I was like, we're making a toy for that. So that's her letter A. And
I love it how some of them have like a full like little face to them, but then others just have like eyes, and they're all different. Some have faces, and some are just eyes and nose, or eyes and eyebrows and stuff. So it's a cool like weird variety and a cool mix. And we were just randomly picking letters. Like the letter A I wanted to do because Laura had posted that one.
maybe C originally maybe was going to be planned with Cookie Monster, but and then the letter N, that was being sculpted for another character. And I was like, we had N and C and A, and then I texted Randy and said, we just need to sculpt the letter E, and we'll spell it. And I said we could put that. How awesome would that be at the booth? And then Randy was like, that's perfect. Yeah, just go ahead. So we found online, we had found some different Muppet letters. And the letter E was in like a beauty pageant thing, which was ridiculous. It had this like the cape and the crown and everything. So Brody had sculpted, I think Brody sculpted most of the letters. But anyway, but it just coincidentally, we had NECA already sculpted. So we're like, all right, we'll put those out at the show. Muppet letters are super fun. Picking out the accessories is great. I was going to much stuff to pull from.
Yeah, we talked about it in our turtle conversation about how some of like that there are so many weird accessories, but sometimes some of the most like mundane pieces make for the best, accessories in there. And the fact that we're getting the boring stories book, because the bottle cap collection, paperclip collection, Bernice, it's like, okay, yes, these make perfect sense to be with Bert, but boring stories, that's fantastic. That's another accessory. I see that in lots of pictures in its future.
Yeah, there's several books for Bert that are there's like an illustrated guide to like oatmeal, and like just like he had the funniest, he'd just be sitting there reading a book and he just wants to be left alone, and then Ernie would show up and start messing with them. And there's a lot. So hopefully we'll do another version of Bert, or we'll do an accessory pack or something, so we can get more of those books and stuff in there.
And Ernie of course had to come with the rubber ducky and the iconic painting from their apartment as well.
Aaron pretty faithfully recreated that thing. And he did all the box art for the on the packaging. It's turned out really, really great. So rubber ducky, we found like the actual prop like duck that they used, and we were trying to be pretty faithful to that. It changes over the years. There's a few different versions where the paint's a little different on them, but it's it's pretty fun stuff to work on. It's like Sesame Street all day and just.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, as we said, character appropriate, like the because guys do have, we talked about defining accessories, but then pulling from like all of like the little things here and there and all the different sets and whatnot. That's going to be so much fun, because if we, follow patterns of, other things that you've had the opportunity to bring us, I think that's going to be a really fun part too, is seeing accessories that it's like, oh my gosh, I haven't thought about that in, 40 years to see come to life. But I was going to ask you, Sesame Street, like everything, has kind of gone through, they go through updates and changes, and sometimes it's subtle and it's, hard to tell and whatnot. But one of the things that I was really caught by when I saw, the first 3 figures at San Diego was like, these look like the characters when I was like really into Sesame Street. Is there a specific era that you are going for, or is there like, are you going for like more like iconic amalgamations, or how did you guys think through that process?
That also came up in our initial meeting. We decided these are like Palisade scale, and it was pretty also unanimous. We wanted to be like mid 70s to like mid 80s, like that chunk. Most of us were little kids like watching it back then, but that was kind of like the peak like nostalgia range for all of these characters. So because the first couple of years of Sesame Street, like Ernie and Bert, Big Bird, they all had like pretty specific looks, and then it evolved a little bit, and then there's kind of that core kind of early 80s look, and then they kept getting more and more refined and throughout the decades. So that's kind of the goals. Like we're going back to those like 70s to 80s era.
Well, and one of the things I think was like a major tell for me that I was like, I think that's what they're doing is that, Ernie's shoes are scuffed and dirty.
Yeah,
It's like Sesame Street used to look actually lived in. I don't feel like it's really that way much anymore, but it actually felt like the barrio, right?
Yeah, they're pretty polished now. Like it's really well lit. Everything's pretty like squeaky clean. So yeah, he's got kind of scuffed up shoes, and yeah, we tried, and even I think on this, I have the count here.
Oh,
there's I noticed on there's a detail I noticed when the count would like close his mouth, and there's like this little spot on the side, like he has kind of this crooked smile. And so when Paul was sculpting this, it happens like all the time with the puppet. I don't know if it was like where Jerry Nelson's thumb was like in the head, but I was just like, Paul, when you sculpt it, because both of them, there's an open and a closed mouth. And for the closed mouth, I was like, Paul, make sure you get this little, like, there's this little crooked like indentation on his lip on the side, where it's like it's more open to the right and more closed on and so we were trying to find all those little weird not flaws, but just like the weird kind of things that would happen with the puppets. And there's like, we try to get, I think on maybe an Ernie, there's like, you can see little wrinkles and stuff on their hands, because it's sort of like the glove where the actor's hands like fit into the little glove. So we were trying to get all of those things on the puppet that make them so special and unique. And like the Count's eyebrows are floating, they're like attached to his head. So like that was something. Wow. They're just glued right like at the bridge of his nose, and they stick out to the sides just like the puppet does. And so we try to get all that detail. And then the cool thing with Sesame Street was like, nowhere online could I find a picture of the Count, like of the puppet, that just showed the back of his cape, like the back of the coat, because he always has his cape on. Yeah. And I didn't know if he had, because the Muppets have weird details that you don't see. Like, does he have tails? Or like, what does the back of the jacket look like? We had no idea. And we just emailed like Sesame Street. And we're like, what is this puppet like? What is it? What's the jacket look like? And within an hour, they had photos, and they just sent us back like pictures of the puppet. And so there's details that you just like, you'll never find online. You just can't. Yeah. Luckily, they have access to everything. And there's like all, the buttons on the cuffs, and then like the little, there's little buttons on his shoes. There's like weird details that like they're in there that you really have to look close at the reference. And if we're not sure, we just asked Sesame Street, like, can you like shoot over a couple pictures of the puppet? And they do, and it's great. So
yeah, that's awesome to have a licensing partner that operates like that. But I found it interesting with the Count, especially because you talked about the how some of them were constructed like Ernie and the Count, so that the Muppeteer's hand would actually go into their hands, whereas Bert didn't have that. And then they'd have and sometimes it took two of them to operate like Ernie. Like there's a lot of pictures that you've seen with like Jim Henson doing his part, and I think Richard Hunt comes in for the other hand. Yeah, and so it's cool. It's amazing to see details like that. But you had the Count up, and one of the things that I've always been taken with, and I think a lot of people like overlook it but don't do it on purpose, is that the inside of his cape is so intricately patterned. That had to have been an adventure for you, especially sourcing soft goods, right?
It was an adventure. This lining, there's like this jacquard pattern thing, and it changes over the years, because they sent us like the pattern that they use for the modern Count. And it's the one that you see on kind of everything now, and it's a lot of like polka dots. It's sort of like a white background with a bunch of polka dots. But we had seen like the puppet that's on display, I think at like the Smithsonian, or the one that's on tour, and like some of the older ones. And there's like, and some of the old like records, and like really old, the merchandise and stuff. It wasn't that pattern. It was like something else. And we were like, we want to do like the original cape pattern, not like the modern one.
Yeah.
So we're like, well, you know, we kind of like the modern one. And we're like, well, maybe we can do like both versions at some point. So Aaron recreated that pattern, trying to match just what we could see from like photos and stuff. So yeah, so this one has like one that's closer, and this too is like a custom print, just like what we do with Hatsu and like the Shredder's cape. It's just, you can't find anything like it at that scale. You can't just source it. So we just had to do like our own like custom thing. So Aaron came up with that pattern, tried to match it to what he could see on the old photos and reference and stuff. And then Stefan was able to get, I think there's a wire in the cape, so it's a little more posable. There's little pop the hand off, and then there's a little elastic band.
Oh, to keep it on.
To keep it like pinned to his sleeve. So that kind of fits over there. And then there's a little hook inside the collar.
Oh yeah.
That'll just, because the heads come off. So let's see if I can do this. So yeah, so the hood just pins into the back of the shirt collar.
Oh,
and
nice.
Then you can just like pop the heads on. So because it's the cape is packed behind the figure. It's like separate from the.
Okay.
It's not attached. So when you get the figure and you open it, you have to assemble it yourself. So
yeah.
So there's just a little hook that pins on there. He's got a little elastic bands so you can pin the corners to his sleeves, and then he's got there's a little wire in there that you can kind of help pose him and stuff.
Well, that little hook is actually a really important piece, because, you know, to pose him as where it, like, all that stuff attaches on the puppet too. It's like that would be like a weird floating thing if it didn't attach to the back like that. So
yeah. And it's one of those things, like if it was glued on and you're like kind of, if you're popping the head off, if it was glued on and it rips off or it breaks, that also kind of sucks. So we just you know, we don't want to have like a broken toy. You know, and so it's so that piece is removable. It just clips on with this little hook, and it's all pretty modular, and hopefully it's user friendly. So
yeah. Well, I was thinking about this conversation the other day, and I was like, you know, we've been able to talk about like the Ninja Turtle line over like the course of pretty much its entire existence, but when we started talking about it, we didn't really sit back and think that it was like, okay, we're just now getting started with this and the wild places that it's going to go. But learning from that type of, you know, experience, it is my hope, because everything that, you know, at least anecdotally that I've seen, is that a lot of people are really, really, really excited for this line. And so you start to daydream about potential and whatnot. It's just, I'm wondering, like, do you have a specific thought exercise with the team that goes on when you're like picking, you know, characters for this line? Because obviously you need some heavy hitters, especially to get it started, but then there are some cool characters that, you know, aren't A-list, right?
Of course. Especially with like Sesame Street, there is so much potential for it to like expand and get crazy. And there, you know, it's been on for decades, so there's so many characters and so much possibility. We all have our own kind of favorite you know, kind of side characters or like obscure characters, so we've all got our little like wish list. And then it is just sort of balancing out, like, you know, we need a couple of like the heavy hitters and then kind of sprinkle in some of the obscure ones. And but there's like one point we had it pretty locked down, like the line plan. And then I was talking to Stefan, and I was like every character we have coming up is like furry and blue. I was like, It's like wave 2 or 3. I was like, there's like every character is like a blue, like they're all blue. I was like, we need to mix this up and just get some more like just like a human character or like a a monster or like what I was like I think we need to mix it up a bit because like they're all blue for like well, so anyways, so you hit little snags like that and then you have to like reset or just shuffle stuff around and then or like one figure there might be like a bunch of revisions and notes and then you're like you're making adjustments and then another figure just kind of shoots through and like gets finished earlier than you expected and then you're like, oh well, this one's done and kind of ready to go. So like so you can like there's a lot of things that can happen and you like shuffle stuff around. So it's interesting. And then there's some stuff like there's a couple characters that like I was like, I don't want to wait like 2 years to get to we need to just make this guy now. So sometimes I'll just like skip ahead because I just want
I know I'm biased because it was, as you said, the era of Sesame Street that I really grew up in, but I really do believe that like mid 70s to mid 80s era was really like the best time for like just the wild characters that and some of them have been retired or they've they don't show up hardly as much anymore, but it was like it was like any episode of Sesame Street back in those days. It was a free-for-all for like the types of characters that you could see show up, and that's part of the thing that made it great.
And some of the pairings were really funny. Like some of the funniest skits are with like Grover and Kermit. And like those, like I didn't really remember that until I went back and we started watching, the show for work. We were doing like research, and there's just like Grover was always this salesman that was like bugging Kermit, or there's like a fairy tale thing. There's just like they would get paired up, and it makes sense because it's like Jim Henson and Frank Oz, and like just no matter what they do together, it's always hilarious. But like
gold,
But it's just funny to see like how Grover was like messing with Kermit just as much as like with the fat blue Mr. Johnson guy. He's like the waiter and stuff. So like those old skits are just there's so many good ones. They're fun to go back and watch and just this would be great or whatever.
Well, I mean, we know the A-list characters on there that have persevered like literally from the first episode to now. But when you're kind of talking about more of those like secondary characters or whatnot, my brain goes to places like Forgetful Jones or Sherlock Hemlock or whatnot. But do you have some who are some of your favorite like secondary Sesame Street characters?
Some of my favorites. Let's see. I really like Harry Monster.
And his awesome striped pants.
And who knew? Like that's a weird thing that like we got all the storybooks and like,
that's how I knew it was from the storybooks.
And there's like some toys and stuff. And who knew? But Biff and Sully are really funny. When I was a kid, I was terrified of the Yip Yip Martians and Frazzle.
Frazzle's a good one. Frazzle's
but I might just have to confront my fears and just I need to get Paul or somebody working on those just so like
the best
work through the trauma.
The best cosplay I ever saw at San Diego Comic-Con were two people as the Yip Yip aliens, and it was amazing, and they had the voices down and everything. So those are that with like fall and they're scary, but I think we'll probably we'll get to them someday. And who else is there? There's like Grover's really great. Yeah, Grover's my mom's favorite Sesame Street character of all time.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, he was, Elmo became more prevalent later on, but Grover was like the adorable, cuddly, lovable that like the little kids like really loved to see because I don't know, there was just something about him.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Uh, yeah. There was, oh dear, what was it? There's like, trying to think of some of the funny episodes we've been watching lately. There's this one that it's on like season 7. It's streaming on HBO Max for a while. I don't know if it's still on there or not. But it was like a concept album or something, and then they turned it into an episode. And it's like Bert just wants to take a bath and be left alone. And then like Ernie pushes a piano into the bathroom and they start playing, and then like Gordon and Bob and like David and like everyone, and then Maria comes in, and then Bert freaks out because like Maria's like he's in the tub and everything, and then like Grover shows up, and then Big Bird and it's like the entire cast of Sesame Street is just doing this like 25 or 30-minute sing along in Ernie and Bert's bathroom, and it's like the funniest thing. And Bert just does not want to. He just sinks kind of like lower and lower, like into the tub, just does not want to be bothered. And then the Count shows up and he starts singing like 99 bottles of beer on the wall or something. And they can't stop him from counting. So they just sort of like, I think Gordon like grabs him and just throws him in the shower or something, or like just to like shut him up. And it's like,
That's
so good.
Well, you bring up, an interesting point with that, because you mentioned Harry Monster, but now Big Bird as well, is that, the cast, at least the Muppet cast, especially of Sesame Street, has all kinds of shapes and sizes. I really like the box art and things that you're doing for the figures so far, because it's like uniform and it goes together. But I mean, if we're talking about some of those characters, they may push the boundaries of the limitations of that type of packaging, right?
Yeah, Big Bird, not that I would know, but Big Bird would probably be about this tall, and the box would be about, about this size.
Right about like that, yeah.
Like that. But yeah, if we get to like Snuffleupagus and like some of those characters, and that would be awesome. Another one is Bruno, who's like the guy that carries around Oscar. The
garbage can, yeah.
If we could do a Bruno figure someday, like that would be super cool. So I don't know. There's tons of potential, and there's lots of weird places we could go, just like having fun with this line. So
well, let me ask you this for this line, maybe for the focus or maybe for the license part of it. Are you guys keeping to the actual Muppet characters, or because there are lots of animated vignettes and things like that go on in Sesame Street, that maybe characters come from that, maybe like accessory type things? Is that type of stuff available to you?
I don't recall if that's on the table.
Okay.
I know we've asked about it. I don't know what the official answer is, but yeah, like Ladybug's Picnic.
I was gonna say Ladybug's Picnic, or I don't know how you would like
that typewriter dude. Yeah, there's some great like iconic animation on the show too. So
it's like the one accessory. It's like, so we were talked about the one accessory, because there are lots of them, that it's like you've got to find a way is like a teeny little super guy pack in, because that is one of the most memorable like non-Muppet sketches of that entire show.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, if we can do it, then that would be a great accessory, or just a great something to add in.
So at Comic-Con, there were also some things that were shown off. It's like there's a very iconic lamppost and some wall pieces going with that. It feels like that Sesame Street, it's like, yes, there's like the main set where everybody at the 1, 2, 3 set, but there are a lot of the vignettes and whatnot had these these set pieces that they were actually small and just a couple of things in there, and it's like this line almost feels like it's instantly, lending itself to being able to, maybe explore those possibilities as well, right?
Yeah, definitely. I know there's a lot of people that it's strange to see like full-bodied Muppets, like Muppets with the legs, and so
The posers, yeah.
If we can make a brick wall and you can just pose your figures like behind
everybody
the walls,
behind it
because it looks right. That was one thing when Steve was photographing these things. I was like, I had mentioned to Steve, I said, most of the time on the show, we don't see them, full body. So like we have one or two shots like for, to fill this up, because like pretty much every Ultimate package has like that. But when he did the rest of the photo shoot, it was a lot of there's just like a flat colored background on a lot of them. They weren't always like on the street, so like Bert and Ernie's apartments, like just a simple like gray wall. So it was, when Steve did such an awesome job with these photos, when these pictures came in, I just like couldn't. I showed Aaron. I was just like,
that's awesome.
We just like could not stop laughing at like just how cool. And he has like there's a skit with Ernie and the Count when they're trying to answer a telephone. But the Count just wants to count the rings, and like Ernie's like, someone's calling, we have to answer the phone. So we gave him that. But it was really important to just try to shoot them mainly from the waist up, just so it kind of matched. It was like what was familiar to people on the show. So so I don't know. These figures they've been so much fun so far, and hopefully it keeps going.
Well, with 3 figures, it's instantly, vibrant, colorful, all very different from each other, just like a, Muppet-based line should be. But I did happen to see when you had the Count's box up, it looks like he appropriately comes with not a letter, but a number in this case. So that's on brand for him for sure.
Yeah, he was a little more expensive. We had more stuff planned for him, and he was really expensive. So the number 2 that ended up with him, and then we'll have to do a second version and find another place for some of his other accessories. There's some bats that got cut, and he's got that other cape and everything. So
one of the funniest, like, to me, like, memorable sketches with him was when he was at the beach, because it was like literally the Count like in a bathing suit and like counting like beach stuff there. It's like you're taking the Count character and like turning it on its head because he's outside in the fun in the sun. And
they would do that sometimes. Like they just, I don't know. There's this one where he's at the restaurant ordering hot dogs from Grover. And he says something about, these are like my favorite like American food. And it's just sort of like, it's this funny line where it's like, oh yeah, I guess he's from Transylvania or something. So he's just like, it's so Grover just keeps bringing him out hot dogs, and he doesn't want to eat any of them. He just wanted to count them or something. So they're so funny. And the Count has this there's a couple seasons where it snows for like several episodes, and so Sesame Street is like blanketed in snow, and the Count has this really weird like fur hat, like this. It's sort of crumpled down and like flopping over on the side. It's like this weird fur hat thing, and then he's got icicles on his nose. And then he's just sitting there shivering, like counting snowflakes or something. Like, and they're like, "Why don't you go inside where it's warm?" He's just like, just can't do it because it's too much fun to count, But he's like freezing to death. So,
well, and I mean that speaks to you're starting the line with 3 very, very well known and favorite characters, but there are so many different versions of those iconic characters. I mean, we've just, without even needing to think about it, listed off several for the Count. But it's like when Bert and Ernie are the when they're in the pyramid and they've got like
yeah.
the pith helmets and stuff like that. It's like, man, that sketch is so memorable. There's just a lot within the era that you're talking about to literally explore from not only, a character standpoint, but a, version of character standpoint too. It's like, it feels almost unlimited at this point.
Yeah, it is like when we kind of planned out the series, it's just, there's a lot we can do with it, so yeah, hopefully we can get to, a lot of this stuff, because yeah, there's lots of different looks and different outfits, and like one of my favorite Bert and Ernie ones is the one in the pyramid's really good, but I like when they're fishing and he's just like, they're out on that boat and Ernie's just like, here, fishy, fishy, just like calling.
Yep, fishy, fishy, fishy.
Boat, and then the shark shows up, and there's there's just so many good ones that like, I want to make figures for like every sketch that they did.
Well, and to your point, I think we may not have known it at the time, but for a lot of people who really adore those two characters, it was, Frank and Jim, like doing their absolute magic in every single sketch, playing off of each other with two characters that, had very defined personalities, and it's just every one of them became memorable and enjoyable, and it's like, okay, there it is.
Yeah, the one where I think there were several, but like when Bert's nose, like Ernie would pull Bert's nose off, and like, he was like sculpting. So that's planned for this Bert. His nose is not removable, but I think there's going to be a future version with like a magnetic nose or something that we're gonna have to do. So
nice.
Yeah, there's actually and I think his hair's removable, because we might end up making that. He wears like a little fedora when he's like doing the pigeon, like in that song where he's dancing. He's got this little hat on.
The like flat, like straw hat looking things or whatever they are, with the the old timey carnival hats or something.
One of those like pork pie hats. It might be a fedora. I can't remember, but anyways, that his hair is also removable. So for future, one day, who knows when, fit a hat on that head. So
nice.
We're trying to plan ahead for.
Well, I was gonna say from right out the gate, with the first couple of figures, planning ahead for that, which is so encouraging and awesome. It's like I could talk all afternoon about characters and sketches and things like that, but it's funny because I'll take a minute just to say this, because when this was announced that people were really excited, it was like, listen, I've said it before, it's like there's like nobody on this planet that you would rather have managing an action figure line of the Ninja Turtles than Trevor. And like Sesame Street is like the exact same way, because
that's like he
will get you with his knowledge.
I mean, it is weird. It's like I'm just as obsessed with the Muppets and Sesame Street probably as Ninja Turtles. So it's fun to work on. I'm very lucky to we get to work on this stuff. It's so much fun.
Well, and that's what I kind of, and this conversation helps to tease that out as well. It's like when people ask, it's like what can we expect from this? It's like, I mean, look, it's in good hands. If it if people are into it and buy it, it's like, I don't think that there's many characters that you would say, oh, that's never going to happen, because we said it far too many times in the Ninja Turtle line, right?
Yeah. That's one thing I learned at NECA, is just like never say never, because like there's stuff that like years ago, we're like Ed 209. I was like asking Randy, like, are we ever gonna do like Ed 209? He's just like, no way, it's too big. And then like a year or two later, we had an Ed 209 figure, and it's just like some stuff. Even back when I first got hired at NECA, like years ago, I had asked Randy about the Mirage Foot Clan, And he goes, it's done. Like the line's dead. It'll never happen. And then circling, it all comes back around. Sometimes stuff will just like go on hold for a little bit, and then we get back to it. Stuff's got to kind of settle down, and then you build the demand back up, and then you come out with more. So like, yeah. So I've just learned over the years, never say never. So hopefully people love the Sesame Street stuff and support it, and then that'll just mean we get to keep making more figures and making more cool stuff.
Well, and I think there's probably a lot to, even though Ninja Turtles and Sesame Street don't seem to be related in many ways, I think there's even a lot to learn from a line like Ninja Turtles that is so like colorful and expressive, and you've pushed so many of those I don't want to say boundaries, but it's just like some of like the alternate expressions and things that we've gotten and whatnot over the years. It's like that's like a single frame reference that everybody remembers. It's like Sesame Street has a lot of that type of stuff going on as well.
Yeah, you want to try and recreate some of those iconic moments, like the nose, Bert's nose, and getting stuck on that clay maquette or whatever. So yeah, when we can, we try to maximize because the puppets are just so like expressive, so it's like we're going to try, some of the characters are going to have a hinged mouth, just like our Alf figure has a hinged mouth, or like some of the Ninja Turtle figures have hinged mouths. So like where we can put it in and it doesn't like mess up the figure, break up, the overall shape, if we can hide a hinged jaw, we will, and then that figure will be like really expressive. And if it doesn't work, then Bert, Ernie, and the Count, they all have like, I think they each have two heads. There's like open and closed mouth. If there's future figures, maybe we'll do another expression or something. But yeah, we try to make the figures, as I don't know, as accurate as they can be, and as playable, and we try to make them as fun as possible, where we can. So
yeah. Well, so Bert and Ernie have shipped, and they have been up for pre-order for a while. I would imagine Count's going to go up for pre-order super quick then, because if he's on his way as well, and so maybe hopefully that means that we'll be seeing some new reveals of future characters before too long then.
Hopefully, someone might be living in this trash can. I don't know who this could be, but
I'm not able to like think of a character that would do that, but random
trash cans on my desk over here.
Yeah.
Hopefully we have some new stuff to show at Toy Fair next year. Count should be out like early next year, sometime, definitely like spring-ish, maybe. Ernie and Bert should be hitting like,
I know, I keep
checking. Maybe I'm never good with like the actual release dates, but yeah, Ernie and Bert are first, and then Count's next, and then hopefully we've got a couple new characters ready to go later on. So yeah, probably if all goes according to plan, Toy Fair, we should have a couple new cool reveals. So
well, I will be there for that for sure, because I've been obsessing since it was showing, and that I talked to you about how they were getting close to shipping. It's like those are the pre-orders that I'm checking like mad, because I can't wait, and 2025 sounds like it's going to be a great year for Sesame Street, and man, I can't wait. I can already tell it's going to be a fun ride.
Yeah, hopefully.
Well, I appreciate you taking more time out of your schedule, because I was really, really, really wanting to talk about this, and I was super excited about it, and I'll probably be bugging you just as much about talking about it in the future as I am with Turtles. So hopefully we'll get some opportunities to do that, because once I get a chance to get this first series in hand, I know that I'm going to want to talk about it. So I can't wait.
Yeah, I'm always always up for talking Muppets or Turtles or any of that stuff. So
Heck yeah.
yeah.
All right. Well, everybody, thanks for joining us for part 2 of this conversation. Hope you enjoyed it. And, hopefully, like we said, we'll be able to do it again sometime in the not too distant future. But Trevor, thanks for coming back. And I hope you have a great holiday and everybody has a great holiday and a good new year. And we're going to just be refreshing over and over again for Bert and Ernie to ship to kick off the new NECA Sesame Street line.
Cool.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We appreciate it.